The very first thing we do in life is inhale. The last thing we do is exhale. In between these first and last breaths, we live our lives. We breathe in, we breathe out hundreds of thousands of times. You know, it's interesting how much we talk about the breath. We say things like, don't hold your breath, or he took my breath away, or don't waste your breath. We constantly are gauging how much breath we have or we need because it's important. It keeps us alive. But our breath does much more than that. Our breath offers us space in life, an opportunity to face the next moment and to make the next right choice. And these are just a few of the things that we'll talk about today, is how we can use our breath that will have a profound effect in our life. Let's start with space. How much space would you say you have in your life right now? Most people would say not enough. I know that I lost the most amount of space in my life when I became a parent. Sound familiar? After I had babies, I just never stopped moving. As they slept, I worried. As they played, I cooked. I wanted so desperately to do the right thing. I just did everything. I didn't know how to be still. And forget about my hopes and dreams, aspirations. They were out the door, of course. But my kids have plenty of space. Space to learn, to grow, and to just be. You know what I've noticed is the older we get and the busier we get, our space just tends to evaporate. And most of the time, we don't notice it at all because everyone else's space has evaporated as well. And we're all just running on this great big wheel in this exhausting race. And then it becomes normal. And then what happens if we do find ourselves with a little bit of space? It doesn't automatically feel as wonderful as we thought it would. Thoughts and feelings that we have so perfectly pushed down can pop up out of nowhere, and it can be quite overwhelming. And what happens if this happens too much? We learn to quit creating space altogether through distraction or whatever means possible. But what if I told you there was a way to create space in your life that felt both safe and grounded? Where we didn't have to rush to push away ourselves, and we could be in the present moment, here and now. Well, there is, and it's a wonderful tool that makes this all much easier. And it also leads us down a path of wholeness and healing. And it's called breathwork. Breathwork is a practice that uses breath awareness and conscious breathing patterns to quiet our mind and to access the innate inner wisdom that we all have. And the beautiful thing about it is, you don't have to practice years and years to achieve this state or go sit in a cave somewhere. You don't have to have any prior experience at all. All you have to do is be still and watch and breathe. I started to practice breathwork because I realized I didn't want to wait until I was old to become wise. I wanted to find harmony in my life and with myself now. But the biggest thing was, I realized I didn't want to pass on my unexamined baggage for the people around me to have to carry. You know, I tried for years to become lighter. I read every self-help book. I did tons of yoga. I quit my job, sold all my stuff, went to India to join the yogis. And then I went to Nepal to study mindfulness meditation. and I lived in this little hut in the Himalayas. Now, this hut had no electricity, no water, no distractions. It was beautiful, except maybe like a buffalo in a field grazing. Nothing to do. But one day, my teacher sat me down, and he said, "Beth, everything you have ever done, all your experiences, your jobs, your culture, your beliefs, everything has led you right here to Nepal in this hut made of mud and buffalo dung. This is your life." Well, I wouldn't necessarily say it made me a lot lighter, but it did change the way I did things from then on. I started to be aware of my actions. I started to learn how to become comfortable, well, somewhat, with the uncomfortable. But the biggest thing that I learned there was how to use my breath as a reminder to come back to my practice and back to myself, to the present. You know, Glennon Doyle has this wonderful quote in her new book called Untamed. She says, "If you are uncomfortable, angry, yearning, confused, you don't have a problem. You have a life. Being human is not hard because you're doing it wrong. Being human is hard because you're doing it right." We will never change the fact that being human is hard, so we must change our idea that it was ever supposed to be easy. Here's a story about not so easy. My husband and I had just married, and we decided to live in his home country of Liechtenstein. We had just announced to his entire family that we were expecting a baby. And then we get on a plane to the US to tell mine. Now, we thought we were totally in the clear. Like, the doctor's visits had gone really well. I was feeling good. We were 3 months in. But in the final days of our trip, we lost the baby. I was devastated. I was not okay. And as I sat there with this storm over my head brewing, I had the realization that, oh my God, and in 2 days I have to get on a plane. I have to move to a country I barely know anything about. I don't really know anyone there yet, and I can't even speak the language. The thought made me freeze. I couldn't move. The only thing I could do to face that next moment, the only thing I could do was to come back to my breath. It was literally the only thing I had at that moment. Just keep breathing, Beth. I knew if I could breathe through this moment, I had a better chance of making it to the next. I mean, after all, maybe this is what all that work was for. All those books and the practice and the time. Maybe it wasn't for the easy times in life, but maybe it was for the hard times in life. This was it. Well, I did get on that plane, and I did move to a new country, and I did learn the language, and none of it was easy. But you know what I kept with me? I kept the memory of how my breath held me during that time. And I learned to breathe as intended, to breathe through things like grief, the unknown, and to keep moving forward. You know, our consciousness is like the great sea. On top, we have the things that roll by, like thoughts and feelings, situations. In the middle, we have the currents of our lives, our relationships, our personality, who we say we are. And then deep down, we have our essence, the truth of who we really are. It's where our intuition comes from, our strength, our power. Our breath offers us a safe passage into this harbor. And when we sail out of the harbor, our outer world looks much different. Our reactions start to become responses. We start to live in a place of gratitude rather than fear. The mindful and deliberate control of our breath helps shine a light into the physical and emotional places in our bodies that allow healing to begin. And when we shine that light, it's magic. People notice. We start to look different and feel different. We are different because we're making choices from the depths of our personal sea. And we no longer need to ask other people what to do because we know. But first you got to dig deep. You got to show up, stay, be still, and breathe. Let's breathe together for a minute. I invite you to close your eyes, put one hand on your heart and one hand on your belly, and just start to notice your breath. Don't change it, just notice it. How does it feel? Is it ragged or smooth? Is it shallow or deep? Now see if you can start to make it a little slower, longer. Notice if it has any effect on your body when you do that. Maybe even your breath has a message for you. Now, with your next inhale, I invite you to open your eyes back up and join us here. Welcome. Now, this is a tiny, tiny introduction into a great big field of breath work. In a time when there's so much uncertainty, our breath helps us realize that although we may be physically separated right now, we are not alone. There is a way to find stillness in the storm by using our breath. And now is the perfect time for self-care, not just for ourselves, but for everyone. To grab hands, to take a breath together, and just start to shine a light into the places we have been too afraid to look. Once we realize that our shadows are shared and that we can heal ourselves physically and mentally, spiritually, and that we are more connected than we ever imagined, the possibilities are endless. I find it so amazing that we can use our breath to energize and relax ourselves by hacking into our nervous system when we need to. And that I find it so comforting that we can create an emotional environment that's more balanced and stable for us and for those around us. And that something so small can make such a big difference. Just one breath.